Your past doesn't define you, your current choices do. Now, in order to have this conversation, we do have to acknowledge certain truths and certain research, but even the research is a little tricky. So let's talk about that. Bringing your past into your current is a believed truth in psychology, that the experiences you have when you are younger affect who you are, how you think, and how you act as an adult. That's why childhood trauma has such a major impact on adults and how they think, act, and believe. Doesn't mean that you are destined to become something because of what happened in your youth. And that's the point that I want to drive home talking about this subject today. You have to be aware. Self-awareness is huge. You have to be aware of the things that happened to you when you were young, so you can understand why you think, act, and believe the way that you do. Personality has a lot to do with it. Some of it is genetic, some of it is learned through environment and experiences. But none of it means you are destined for anything. There's a lot of studies that say your personality is hardwired by the time you're 12, and you can make certain changes, but some of it, much of it, depending on who you talk to, is set. Other people think they have an effect, your experiences have an effect on you, but you can make the changes throughout your lifespan. I'm not going to defend one or the other. That's not the purpose. Because I think what's most important is you learning about yourself, becoming more self-aware, so you understand what you can control. There's not really much purpose in focusing on what you can't control, because even if I had a traumatic childhood and I am prone to anger, okay, that's makes sense that I would experience a lot of trauma when I'm young, and now I'm quick. I've got a short fuse. I've got a hot-headed temper. I get in conflicts with a lot of people. I mistreat people. I'm sorry for the way that I act, but then when I get triggered, I can't control myself. I can't regulate myself very well. In that sort of situation, the more I can become self-aware, the more I can take responsibility for my actions. That's what's going to lead to me being able to make changes in myself over time. The more significant the experience, the more significant the result. What it really comes down to, personal accountability, personal responsibility. Are you willing to reflect deeply and try to figure out why you think and act the way that you do? The other thing is, are you willing to do some deep reflection on who do I want to become? Take responsibility for, this is who I want to become, this is what I have to do along the way. If you're not willing to do that, you are going to constantly be a victim of your circumstances. You're going to blame everybody else. You're going to minimize the impact your youth had on you currently. You're going to minimize the impact others could have on you currently, and you're going to minimize the impact you're going to have on your future in a good way. You're completely going to determine what happens to you in the future. It's about what you do right now. And there's a lot of opportunity to help. And I'm not going to put down any one thing and promote any one thing, because I don't think there is a right answer for anyone. I think there's a lot of helpful tools and resources, whether it be self-help, read books, watch videos, listen to podcasts. Obviously, I like making videos, so I would promote those. If you find one that helps you, or if you find a person that helps you, yes, follow that person. But even that is just the first step to self-awareness. You start learning, but how do you do the things? I don't believe that everyone needs to go to counseling, but I believe everyone could benefit from counseling, from high education and experience doctors of psychology or therapy can really help you dig into what your experience was and help you understand why you think, act, and believe the way that you do. Maybe some people don't necessarily need to go to counseling, they just need a redirect, and that's okay too. So how do you know which one you need? Well, I like to compare cognitive performance, which is mental, cognitive is mental, from mental performance, say coaches that work with athletes or high-risk professionals, to the other side of the spectrum where people are hurt or having a really, really difficult time and need a doctor of psychology or a therapist. Compare that to the physical side. When would you go see a doctor, or even a general practice doctor, your family doctor? I'm sick, I need to go see my doctor. They might give you some medicine and say, hey, try this out. If it doesn't make the symptoms better or solve the problem, they might send you to a specialist. However, if you're not sick, you just need nutrition advice or you need strength and conditioning advice, maybe they're going to send you to a physical therapist. Physical therapist is also a doctor, and they know how to diagnose certain issues and help you get back to a normal functioning. And I think that's where the gray area sits, is what is normal functioning. So if you hurt your knee, you're going to go to a physical therapist. They want to try to get back to normal functioning. From there, it's your responsibility to get with a strength and conditioning coach or a fitness expert, who is then, once you're past the healing part, you're now going to progress from the physical therapist to working with a strength and conditioning coach or a fitness professional. Mental is very much the same thing. If you are having significant challenges, whether it be things like anxiety and depression, you're having challenges in your relationship because you can't control your anger or you can't communicate effectively, and there's a lot of conflict because of that, yes, go talk to a counselor and try to figure out what it is that's going on. Why can't I behave in a way that is effective for the relationship that I want to build? I'm not healthy in my relationship. How do I get healthy so I can become happy? But if it's not that significant, that maybe it's along the lines of goals. I'm not, and here's where it gets a little bit tricky. People throw around terms like depressed and anxious, anxiety and depression. And if you're unsure, it's probably a good idea to start with a counselor. Or you talk to somebody like me, who is a performance coach, somebody who's trained in performance psychology, and I work with athletes and high-risk professionals. Because if I see something that is outside of my realm, I'm going to tell you, hey, it sounds like there's something a little bit deeper here. You should probably go talk to a counselor. And that's okay too. Or maybe you work with concurrently. No situation has a definitive answer for everyone. That's why professionals like me, that's why professionals like counselors and therapists are highly trained to ask the right questions to find out what is happening. And so through these conversations, we can recognize, are you showing clinical depression, or are you just sad? Are you showing clinical maybe to the point of like crushing anxiety that you can't perform, or you're stuck in this perfectionism because of all this anxiety, that's a counseling issue. But if you're feeling anxious because you're scared to step outside your comfort zone, that's absolutely something that I could work with, that I would help people with. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity here, but as an individual, when you are sick, how often would you trust a doctor to treat you versus, oh, I'm just going to go to Walgreens and pop some Motrin? Sometimes that's the right answer. But if that's your continuous go-to and you avoid the responsibility of seeing a doctor when it's appropriate, then you are causing yourself more pain down the road. You're not actually going to solve the issue. There might be something deeper that you need to address, right? So when we talk about accountability and responsibility, how much accountability and responsibility are you going to take for your life? How much self-awareness are you willing to dig into so you can do what is necessary for you to be more effective in your life? I'm not even talking about being happy. I'm talking about being effective and productive, because I think that's a more important conversation than saying, I'm just so unhappy. Well, are you unhappy because you're depressed, or are you unhappy because you're unfulfilled in your life? They're both legitimate concerns. Okay, I think there's a bug in here. Both of those are legitimate concerns, but it's the initial identification, then the behavior. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to just keep listening to your sad music and making excuses for the things that are going on in your life? Are you going to blame your parents? Are you going to blame your friends? Are you going to blame your work and your circumstances? Because if that's the case, you're always going to be blaming something outside of you, rather than being reflective internally and trying to think of, what is it that I could possibly do in this situation? And one thing that I've really worked with, especially with a lot of my athletes and my high-risk professionals, when the world is chaos, when your life seems chaotic, the answer is always to simplify. And things don't have to be crazy. Things can just be confusing. Things can be, you can just feel really sad or unmotivated or unfulfilled. That's kind of a sense of chaos too. It's something that's not allowing you to be productive. Notice I'm still not even talking about happiness here. I'm just talking about being productive and being effective in your life, the things that you want to accomplish, your day-to-day life. And so taking a step toward self-awareness is very, very important. So, your past does not define you. Your personality may or may not be set by the time you're 12 years old. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that you can make a massive impact by choosing behaviors today that are going to make a massive impact later down the road. The only decision that matters for today is, are you worth taking that first step? The answer is yes, you are worth it. So take that first step.